Welcome back to more Let's Play Mega Man X2. We got ourselves Bubble Crab's weapon, and now we are going to put it to work. First thing we're going to do is show off the alternate method for getting the sub-tank. The regular method for getting the sub-tank in Bubble Crab stage is to have the arm parts as well as Bubble Crab's weapon. They allow you to do a high jump when you're underwater. There aren't that many underwater sections in Mega Man X2, so it's not that useful overall in general, but in Bubble Crab stage, for exploration purposes, it's pretty great to have this this super high jump that you get from charged up Bubble Crab's weapon. In general, outside of the water, it basically acts as a pseudo shield. It's not that useful as a shield, but if you can get close to enemies, like Violin, then you can use Bubble Crab's weapon to great effect. Bubble Crab is Violin's weakness. We will be seeing here and in his fight later in the final castle just how powerful Bubble Crab's weapon is. If you charge it up, it's not that great as a shield, but if you stand next to him with it charged up, then you literally can just win by standing there and doing nothing. So Bubble Crab's weapon is great, and again, it is also Violin's weakness. So there we go. We only have one more X-Hunter left to properly take on in our regular playthrough, and that's going to be Sergei's, and we'll be talking about Sergei's quite a bit when we get to him in a little bit. One thing I want to point out about the map here is that sometimes, after defeating certain Mavericks in Mega Man X2, the world map will change a little bit to reflect that you beat that Maverick. So you saw in the map there, Wheelgator stage, the dinosaur tank that he was riding around in was kind of destroyed in the world map, and we will see another more obvious effect after we defeat Flamestag here in our first proper stage of Mega Man X2's second episode. So welcome back. If it's your first episode with me, prepare yourself, because I ramble a lot, but it's usually information that is useful. You know, eventually it's information that's useful. That sub-tank can only be acquired by using the beetle, the beetle enemy that appears in Flamestag stage. It's not really easy or possible to get it without the beetle, so, you know, make use of it. I believe it's called a Beatron, even though it's not a bee, it's a beetle, but whatever. It's fine. Flamestag's stage is the first stage of X2 that I could truly say, well, no, that's not true. Wire Sponge's stage is also pretty straightforward. There are a lot of stages in Mega Man X2 that are much more expansive than the stages in X1, for better and for worse. One of the things I and most people really, really like about the original Mega Man X is just how tightly how tightly and well designed everything is. X2 starts to expand things out a little bit. It becomes a lot, you know, it becomes even crazier when we get to like Mega Man X3 or, you know, like X5 or 6, how expansive, for better or for worse, the level design of those games gets. It starts in X2, but not in every single stage. You know, there are a few stages like Wheelgators that are pretty gigantic, but then we have stages like Flamestag that are, you know, a relatively normal length for a Mega Man stage. So it's a weird it's a weird balance. It's one of the reasons why X2 is not, I don't think, as tightly tightly well put together as Mega Man X1. I'm trying to get the beetle to respawn here because we actually need this beetle in order to reach the location of the X Hunter boss door. So we are going to use... Nope, I'm going to get hurt instead. Alright. I'm going to do a bunch of wall jumping here to attract the beetle to that wall. You want to have the beetle destroy that top wall specifically because this is where the X Hunter would be hiding out if there was, in fact, an X Hunter waiting for us here in the stage. There isn't, but if there was, then that's where they would be. As a reminder, every single stage in Mega Man X2, with the exception of the intro stage and the final castle, have alternate boss doors where there could be X Hunters waiting for you in there if they are in fact in that stage. I don't know what the hell happened there with that beetle enemy. It just blew up halfway. It's a weird glitch that isn't supposed to happen. You're supposed to ride that beetle enemy to that platform in order to get that life, but I just couldn't, so that's a shame. I don't know what to tell you. It's a weird thing. Though those platforms you saw there are more easily accessible if you in fact fought an X Hunter here in this stage, and you'll actually see that in the maps, because I link to the video game Atlas maps that show you the sprite maps for every single stage in the Mega Man X games. So I did that for Mega Man X1, and I will continue to post the maps for every single stage here for X2 and onwards. Well, maybe not all of them. I mean, once we get to the PlayStation 1 titles, that's not going to be as it's not going to be as important to have those maps anymore as compared to the SNES maps. Anyway, Flamestag. Flamestag pulls a Sigma from X1 and spends a lot of his time climbing the walls, trying to chase after you and do some attacks. You can go up, you can follow him up there and start chasing him if you want to. I wouldn't recommend it. It's pretty easy for you to take damage just by doing that. Once Flamestag actually gets to the ground, he's either going to do some dashes, he's going to fire some fireballs at you, one that fires low and one that fires high. He can do a basic dash, as you saw there. He can also dash up the wall a little bit. He usually only does that if you're actually climbing on the wall, so we're going to actually see her here in just a moment, an example of following Flamestag up, and also an example of him dashing up the wall to try and damage you. So I wouldn't fully... I wouldn't recommend fighting Flamestag by climbing up the wall. Don't fight Flamestag on his turf. Wait on the ground, wait for him to finish his wall climbing and jump back down to the ground. He'll either dash at you, throw fireballs at you. Once he's below half health, his fire goes from red to blue. It's just an aesthetic thing. It doesn't actually do anything in terms of damage. So just keep lobbing. Just keep lobbing double charge busters again. Double charge buster that we got from Wheelgator stage is super useful and makes a lot of stuff in a lot of bosses in Mega Man X2 really manageable. Flamestag's weakness normally is Bubble Crab. Flamestag's weakness, and I was just showing off using Flamestag's Flamestag's weapon in conjunction with the Dr. Light arm parts. We can charge it up and have a sort of a super flame dash for X. I'm also showing off here that the mini boss for Bubble Crab stage is not only weak to Bubble Crab, which is kind of irrelevant because X Hunters can't appear in stages you've already beaten. That's another thing about the X Hunters, by the way. X Hunters can never appear in stages you've already beaten. So the fact that the Bubble Crab mini-boss is weak to Bubble Crab's weapon is kind of useless. It's also weak to Flamestag's weapon, for some reason. Even though Flamestag's weapon kind of looks gimped under the water, it still does damage, and it's one of the Bubble Crab mini-boss's weaknesses. It's a weird little quirk of Flamestag's weapon. That for some reason it does pretty well underwater and does well against the Bubble Crab mini-boss. I don't know why. It just does. And as I mentioned, X-Hunters cannot appear in stages that, in Maverick stages you've already beaten. So they only start to appear after you defeat any 2 Mavericks. And if, for example, you have not beaten any of the X-Hunters, and you only have 2 more Mavericks to fight, so you've beaten, 6 of them, you only have 2 left, then one of the X-Hunters is going to disappear completely. I believe the order they disappear in is connected to the order that to the number 0 part that they give you. So Agile gives you 0 part number 3, so he's the first to disappear. Violan gives you 0 part number 2, so he's the second to disappear, and Tsuge gives you 0 part number 1, so he would be the last to disappear. You can only put off fighting X-Hunters until you can only put off fighting X-Hunters until you only have 3 Mavericks left to fight. Because again, if X-Hunters can't appear in stages that you've already beaten, and yeah, so yeah, X-Hunters can't appear in stages you've already beaten. Let's talk about Giga Crush. Let's talk about Giga Crush now, the armor part. Not only do you take less damage from enemies by having the armor, but X charges a special weapon called the Giga Crush that is connected to his body armor that he has now. I'm using a special tactic where I use the arm parts, Flame Stag's charged up weapon, and then the Giga Crush in order to sort of cheese my way up here to get this heart tank early. Normally we would have to use Crystal Snail's weapon. We'll actually see that in the next video. In order to get that heart tank, but that is a way to get it now, because again, as I mentioned in part 1, I am playing through these stages in a way where I will never have to revisit any of them if I don't want to, except for, grinding for sub tanks. But even that's going to be a super fast way to do that after we beat Morph Moth here. That trick, in order to get that heart tank, is a very difficult trick to pull off. It takes quite a few tries. There are some people who can do that trick without pausing. I absolutely cannot do that trick without pausing. I have to, after getting into the position, pause the game in order to switch the Giga Crush quick enough in order to cheese my way up the wall. There are plenty of tricks that are connected to the Giga Crush and how it works. Giga Crush, the way it works, you take damage from enemy projectiles, and it has to be projectiles. It can't just be contact damage. It has to be projectile weapons. Take damage from enemy projectiles, and you eventually charge up Giga Crush enough that you can fire a screen nuke that destroys most basic enemies and also destroys most mini bosses in one hit. Not every single mini boss, but a lot of mini bosses go down really, really fast to that to the armor Giga Crush attack. And again, super useful for getting that heart tank that I got earlier in Morph Mod stage. That requires the arm parts, Flame Stag's weapon charged up to do the Flame Dash, and then using Giga Crush. This mini boss here, very easy. The mini boss itself isn't actually the armor; it's that little bug thing that is bringing up the junk armors. The actual armor here, this thing that's rising up from the ground, is actually weak to Morphmoth's weapon. Giga Crush also instantly kills it, but it's weak to Morphmoth's weapon, which is just a weird little quirky thing about this mini-boss. The actual bug that controls it, and the bug that's the actual mini-boss, is weak to Flame Stag, Bubble Crab, Overdrive Ostrich, and I think that's it. Potentially also Giga Crush as well. Giga Crush also probably works on it. There are green versions of the bugs that can possess and take control of Mega Man, of X, to do stuff. If they take control of X, then they will take over one of his functionalities. Like right now, it is forcing X to fire the Buster. I'm not actually pressing the fire button. The bug is actually forcing X to fire. They can force X to do infinite dashes. They can force X to do infinite jumps, or to fire infinite shots. They're nuisances, but they're not that bad. They're just a fun little quirky thing about this stage. Again, X2 is no stranger to having tons and tons of little attention to detail things that really give this game life and give it personality. Now we have our final X-Hunter, Serges. And unlike Violan and Agile, who we faced in the first video, and we'll be seeing again quite a few times in this video, we actually have Serges' weapon straight up. His cape by the way, that he throws off can actually damage you if you make contact with it when he throws it, and is treated as a projectile, so it charges up your Giga Crush a little bit, which is kind of, again, that's another fun little thing. Surges has 2 attacks. He only does 2 things. He either goes from left to right and plants mines down on the ground that you can destroy with a charged up Mega Buster shot, or X Buster shot. I got used to saying X Buster as opposed to Mega Buster. He can also do his little fancy flips there, where he fires a bunch of little orbs across the screen. Those are the only 2 things that he does. He is the most annoying to kill, if only because of that stupid shield. Compared to Agile and compared to Violan, this is going to be a long fight. Violan and Agile are more fast and furious fights where they can do lots of damage, Violan especially. Sergei's is a different case where this is a boss battle where he's not that threatening himself, but because of that shield, you're going to be fighting this boss for a while. He's weak to Overdrive Ostrich, and I don't really like him all that much. And it's not because of anything that Sergei's himself does. The thing I don't like about Sergei's is honestly, I shouldn't even say I don't like Sergei's. I should say that I don't like what the localization of Mega Man X2 does to Sergei's. It drops a very, very important thing. One of the things about the Mega Man X Legacy Collection that I really have a problem with is that these are just straight ports of the original Mega Man X games. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but there are things about the original Mega Man X games that could really have used some modern day polish. The localization is one of them. Surges is the most messed up character in Mega Man X2 because the localization just completely drops the ball with Surges. In the original Rockman X2, Surges is heavily implied to be Dr. Wily. It's heavily implied that Surges isn't actually a Maverick, but is actually Dr. Wily's mind in the body of a Reploid. That is what Surges is really, really heavily hinted to be in the original Rockman 2 script. Meanwhile, in the localized version of the script, they just completely drop that altogether from Surges' character and just have him, for some reason, think that rebuilding Zero is part of a prophecy, which, magic and prophecy is not a thing in the Mega Man X series or in the Mega Man franchise in general. So the fact that we have Surges just spouting out that rebuilding Zero is part of a prophecy is kind of dumb. And Mega Man X1 also kind of drops the ball a little bit with the with its localization, namely in the after credits sequence with Sigma. Sigma talking on and on about how his spirit remains intact. It's that's actually a thing we'll talk about in the next stage that we visit, Magna Centipede, because the quote-unquote spirit of Sigma has a much more sinister, has much more sinister implications that will inform what the rest of the Mega Man X series, what the rest of the intended Mega Man X series is actually really about. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to the localization, that is one thing I wish the Mega Man X Legacy Collection really just redid for all of the Mega Man X games. I really wish that they had just rewritten some of the scripting to match up the match up the original dialogue more, because without it, it's kind of disappointing. It just is disappointing that Sergei just becomes this nothing weirdo character when originally he could have been, he's heavily implied to be Dr. Wily, come back to want to rebuild Zero, which is going to be a very, very important thing, because as we know from the classic series, Dr. Wily is the creator of Zero, and that is information that is going to be heavily implied and introduced to us here at the tail end of Mega Man X2. Let's talk about Morph Moth. Morph Moth has two forms, his cocoon form and then his hatched form. So his cocoon form, this weird little ball thing, has 3 attacks. He swings from left to right, throwing little garbage scrap metal at you. He will fire out a a little wave of scrap metal, and he'll also dive into the ground and try to he'll dive into the ground and try to ram into you. There is a trophy attached to the Morph Moth boss. Basically, if you wait around for almost 4 minutes, Morph Moth will naturally hatch from his cocoon. You can force Morph Moth to hatch earlier by just fighting Morph Moth and just fighting the cocoon and doing enough damage. I believe when he's at around 10 health left or something, or something close to that number, he will gain invincibility frames and forcefully hatch out of the cocoon in order to fight X properly. But if you just wait around for nearly 4 minutes, Morph Moth, the cocoon will get bigger and bigger and bigger as it absorbs scrap metal. That little wave of scrap metal, that attack that I described, is actually him absorbing scrap metal in order to become bigger and bigger and bigger. And eventually he gets big enough that he will hatch after approximately 4 minutes. And once he hatches, you can fight him properly. So Morph Moth properly dashes about from left to right, fires down little sparkles at you. Those sparkles do damage. He also fires a rainbow laser beam at you, so you have to make sure to avoid that. They both do damage. Morph Moth's weakness is Flame Stag. Again, we'll be seeing all the weaknesses in action in the next video and during the actual rematches, not right now. Morph Moth also does a lot of contact damage, and the sparkles also do more damage than you would think just looking at them, so be careful and finish off Morph Moth as quickly as possible, because he's quite dangerous once he's hatched. Alright, and for defeating Morph Moth, we get another weapon with a lot of usage. So the Flame Stag weapon gets a lot of usage because it's quite necessary to collect a lot of collectibles in Mega Man X2 for that charged up fire dash. The Silk Shot also has a lot of use, but for different reasons. By the way, this cutscene that plays right here plays after you defeat all 3 of the X Hunters. Dr. King will say he will work to put Zero back together now that we have all of the parts and not just the control chip. And it'll be up to X to just, slow down the enemy a bit more. Alright, so now that we have Silk Shot, which is Morph Moth's weapon, let's go over some of its usage. First of all, as I mentioned earlier, for some reason the armor in Morph Moth's stage is like super weak to Silk Shot, and it goes down after getting hit by the Silk Shot once. The little bug thing that appears that appears out of it that actually controls it, again, it is weak to Flame Stag, Bubble Crab, and Overdrive Ostrich. Giga Crush also destroys the armor part of it really fast. And again, for the bug, Flame Stag, Overdrive Ostrich, or Bubble Crab finish it off super fast. And for the armor, you can use Silk Shot. Charged up Silk Shot, X gathers up a whole bunch of scrap metal, or scrap, whatever. We'll talk about that in a second. We'll gather up things from around the level to create a bigger blast. If you complete a stage where you've already beaten a Maverick, then you will not have to refight the Maverick. You will just, enter the arena and just teleport out. So, if you were wondering what happens, that's what happens. Alright, Silk Shot has some unique properties. In most stages, it appears as scrap metal, similar to what we saw in Morph Moth's stage. But in some stages, like in Wire Sponge's stage, Silk Shot takes unique properties. So the unique property of Silk Shot's weapon in Wire Sponge is that it fires out leaves instead of scrap metal. And for some reason, Violin is super weak to the leaf version of Silk Shot. So if you have Silk Shot and you fight Violin in Wire Sponge's stage, then Silk Shot is another weakness you can use for Violin. But specifically only the Silk Shot that that X can shoot in Wire Sponge's stage. Again, Silk Shot has different properties depending on the stage you're in. In Wire Sponge's stage, it's going to be this leafy property. In most other stages, it's going to be the scrap metal. In Bubble Crab's stage, it is going to be rocks. And when it comes to the rocks, the rock version of the Silk Shot happens to be Agile's weakness. So, If you have Morphmoth's weapon and you fight Agile specifically in Bubble Crab's stage, not only can you use his regular weakness, which we haven't seen yet, but you can also use Silk Shot as well. It also does additional damage, specifically only the version that X can fire in this stage and in one other stage. But specifically, when X is able to fire out the rock version of Silk Shot, then that is one of Agile's weaknesses. It's not going to be useful to know for the Final Castle, because in the Final Castle, no matter what, X's Silk Shot only shoots out the junk, the scrap metal version that we saw in Morphmoth's stage. But in the regular stages, you know, it could be useful to know that the version of Silk Shot that you shoot in Wire Sponge is Violin's weakness. The version of Silk Shot that you shoot out in Bubble Crab's stage is Agile's weakness. X also has a special version of Silk Shot in Flamestack's stage. Specifically, in Flamestack's stage, he also shoots out the rock version of the Silk Shot. So, if you're fighting Agile in Flamestack's stage and you have Morphmoth's weapon, then you can use it here and it will count as Agile's weakness. It's important to note that the normal version of Silk Shot, the version that just shoots out the scrap metal, is not Violin's weakness and it's not Agile's weakness. But those special stage-specific versions of Silk Shot can be used as their weaknesses in certain cases. Here's one more use of the Silk Shot. There are secret rooms in X2, where instead of X being able to properly charge up a Silk Shot, he will actually attract health pellets or weapon energy pellets. There's a secret room in Bubble Crab stage right underneath where you first encounter the mini boss, where you can use Silk Shot to attract many health pellets to you, making it super easy to fill up your sub tanks. There is also a secret room in Overdrive Ostrich's stage soon after you acquire the Ride Chaser, where the same thing, if you charge up Silk Shot in here, then you will gain a whole bunch of health, as opposed to just charging up the weapon normally. It's a very efficient way of filling up your sub tanks, but it's important to note you can only do that with the charged up version of Silk Shot. If you don't have the charged up version of Silk Shot, then you cannot take advantage of the secret rooms in X2, of which there are 3. One in Bubble Crab stage, one in Overdrive Ostrich stage, and then one in another stage that we haven't been to yet. Alright. Man, there is a lot to talk about. X2 is a game that's chock full of stuff. Now we have Magna Centipede, our 7th Maverick. Probably one of the most important Mavericks in the franchise, not because Magna Centipede himself is super important. By the way, there's the junk metal, there's the scrap metal version of the Silk Shot. Again, most stages feature the scrap metal version of Silk Shot as opposed to those special versions of Silk Shot that we were covering earlier. All right. Probably one of the most important Mavericks in the franchise, not because of the Maverick himself, but because of what he and his stage represent. It is explained in outside material that Magna Centipede's job for the X-Hunters in this stage is to spread a virus across the world to all Reploids. By the way, you can use the Flamestack charged up weapon here in order to get up and to grab that heart tank. We'll also talk about the spotlight gimmick in a little bit. Magna Centipede's whole job in this stage is to use the central computer to transmit a virus across the world to infect all Reploids across the world. This is such a critical piece of information. By the way, I die here. Oops. We'll see that little GIF pop up in a second. It is such a critical piece of information to know that this stage is connected to Magna Centipede trying to spread a virus, because a lot of the Mega Man X series after this point is going to be all about this virus. Sigma's spirit that he refers to in his post-credits little stinger, he's not talking about his spirit because he's a robot. He doesn't have an actual spirit. He is talking about his essence, his programming, which has been combined and manipulated by this by this virus. And there's going to be a lot of versions of this virus. Right now, we're just going to call this virus the Maverick virus, because this is a virus that turns Reploids crazy and makes them go Maverick. But there's many variants of this virus. Eventually, we will get at least 2 more variants as we move forward. But it is so critical to know that this stage is designed for the Maverick here, Magna Centipede, to spread a virus across the world. Because that is just one of the biggest things about the entire Mega Man X franchise. But we'll take a pause on that. Let's talk about the sword here. Again, CX4 chip being used to enhance and add in 3D graphics. It's cool. You can kill the sword instantly with charged up overdrive ostrich, but if you don't have that, you just want to, know some more stuff about the sword. It doesn't do much. It has 2 attacks. It can, sort of flail around as it flies in your general direction and do a little swipe. It also has a charge attack that it can do. And there's the charge attack right now. It is weak again to charged up overdrive ostrich, regular overdrive ostrich. You can use Morph Moth's Silk Shot if you want to. You can also use Bubble Crab, and you can use Wheel Gator. Wheel Gator is not that useful as a weakness, but you can sort of fire the spin wheel, Wheel Gator's weapon, onto the blade of this virus sword, because this sword is being manipulated by the Maverick virus that I was talking about earlier. You can fire the spin blade into the blade of the sword and sort of slow it down a little bit. It's not that useful, and I would just recommend you go after it with its actual weaknesses, which again is Overdrive Ostrich or Bubble Crab or Morph Moth. You can always use Giga Crush to instantly kill it if you have Dr. Light's body armor from Morph Moth stage. All right, let's talk about these spotlights, because these spotlights are the other gimmick of are the main gimmick of a Magna Centipede. The actual gameplay gimmick of Magna Centipede. Magna Centipede plays heavily into the into trying to incorporate some stealth. It's not like real stealth, but it's as close as it gets. If you get through this area fast enough, then you will be able to reach the X Hunter boss door. We'll talk about that boss door in a second, because all that is connected to this mini boss here. Raider Killer has very basic attacks. It either fires basic shots at you or it jumps up in the air. It's not that difficult. It's weak to Flame Stack, so you can use Flame Stack to it. But there's a lot more to this boss, the spotlights, and the hallway before this boss. So let's say you get spotted, right? What are the consequences if you get spotted? Either in the first section, turrets that are attached to the ceiling come down and try to attack you, and in the second section, if you get spotted, these blocks fall down a lot faster, which could potentially lock you out of the X Hunter boss fight. So that's one potential downside. The other thing to keep an eye out at in this section, if you stay here for too long, is this scanner thing that's trying to scan X and collect information on him. We got locked out of the boss fight, as you saw there, because the blocks were falling too fast. If we allow the radar thing, the scanner thing, to collect information on X, then the Raider Killer will transform and become more powerful depending on how many times it scans X. So it can scan X a maximum of 3 times, changing its form up to 3 times into this final purple form. This final purple form incorporates every single attack the Raider Killer can possibly have, which is the Glob Shot, jumping up and firing little beams down, jumping towards X and firing this big shield attack that's very, very difficult to dodge. His weakness is still Flame Stag. He's got a lot of health. You really don't want to fight this boss when it has this mini boss when it has all of its capabilities unlocked, so don't allow the radar in the previous hallway with the falling blocks to collect any information on X. That way you can have the green version that is much easier to fight. In this final section of the stage, the alarm immediately goes off, the wall turrets come down, these blocks come down. Be careful of these blocks can result in very cheap deaths. Let's talk a bit about the Covert Ops trophy. There is a special trophy attached to this stage called Covert Ops. You have to get through the whole stage without being spotted by the spotlights. I kind of glossed over the hard tank and the sub tank in this stage. The hard tank has to be collected with the charged up Flame Stag ability. The sub tank that we get right before the sword boss can be collected without the without Flame Stag's weapon and without the arm parts. There's going to be a video linked below that shows you the very skillful way that requires Wire Sponge's weapon in order to get the sub tank without charged up Flame Stag. I can't do it, so that's why I have a link below for that. The Covert Ops trophy is only connected to the spotlights, so as soon as you get past the falling hallway with the spotlights, then you will be guaranteed to collect the Covert Ops trophy. The Covert Ops trophy is also can only be acquired if you have not beaten Magna Centipede yet. If you're revisiting Magna Centipede stage after beating him, then you will not get the trophy for getting to the end of the stage without getting spotted. So now that we made it to Magna Centipede, let's talk a bit about this boss. This boss has two types of attacks. Attacks that it does with its tail, and attacks that it does without its tail. So with its tail, it's going to either detach its tail and try to have the little pieces attack X, or it's going to try to suck you in, as it's doing now, trying to suck me into Magna Centipede. If he manages to do that, he is going to infect X with the Maverick virus. It doesn't turn X into a crazy Maverick like everybody else, but it does hinder X's abilities. So the first time that the virus infects X, it is going to take away the ability to charge up the to charge up my X Buster. So every time that happens, I always switch over to Magna Centipede's weakness, which is Morph Moth, and I use Morph Moth to eliminate his tail. Getting hit by the tail guarantees that getting hit by his weakness, which is Morph Moth, guarantees that Magna Centipede's tail is destroyed, meaning that he can no longer infect you. Any infection that he has already introduced to X can't be taken back. So I would recommend you destroy the tail as soon as possible with Silk Shot, basically as soon as the fight begins, in order to force Magna Centipede to just have two attacks, which is jumping around and firing little shurikens at you. This boss is also probably the easiest to get the trophy wherein you have to finish off a boss with the Giga Crush, because Giga Crush is not that effective on bosses, not really, it doesn't do that much damage to them, but because there is a very high likelihood that you will not be able to, that you will use the ability to charge your Buster, it is a very high likelihood that you will get Magna Centipede to a point where he will only have 1 health left, and you will be able to very easily set up an opportunity where you can finish him off with Giga Crush and get the trophy for killing a boss with the Dr. Light Giga Crush ability. So, cool. 7 Mavericks down, we got Magnet Mine. Magnet Mine, by the way, is Agile's actual weakness. Violin's actual weakness is Bubble Crab, Surge Ace's actual weakness is Overdrive Ostrich, and Agile's actual weakness is Magnet Mine. So, there you go. That is the weaknesses for all the X-Hunters, and again, be aware that the X-Hunters here in regular gameplay outside of the Final Fortress can also be affected via via Silk Shot if you fight them in the correct stage. Speaking of correct stages, this stage, Crystal Snail, the final Maverick we're going after, does feature a alternate version of the Silk Shot that is Serge's weakness. So, if you're fighting Surges in Crystal Snail stage and you have beaten Morph Moth, be aware that in this stage specifically, not only is Surges weak to the... Oops, that died there. That is a shame. That is, I believe, the last time I die in Mega Man X2 to a dumb little mistake. So, hooray for me. As I was saying, be aware that if you fight Serge's in Crystal Snail stage, be aware that in this stage specifically, Serge's is not only weak to Overdrive Ostrich, as he is everywhere, but in this stage specifically, he will be weak to Silk Shot. We'll see that for ourselves in a little bit, so hooray! Man, again, I am looking at the timer. I cannot believe I've been going on for almost 40 minutes now. I can really, really ramble on when it comes to Mega Man. And the more I talk about X2, I do like the X-Hunter gimmick, but I also don't like it at the same time. It's... I don't know. I'm not a super big fan of having there be extra steps, extra conditions to unlock the best ending of the game. As a completionist gamer, I like to always go after the best ending every time I play. So, being, you know, having such sort of strict conditions that lock you out of the best ending, I don't know. I'm not super crazy about that. There are plenty of gimmicks in the X series overall that are worse than this one, and there are some that are much better. So I don't know. Overall, X2 is pretty it's pretty middle of the road when it comes to the overall Mega Man X series. I like it more than I like it more now that I'm doing this this Let's Play, but you know, I wouldn't say it's my favorite in the series. I also wouldn't say it's my second favorite of the series by any stretch. You know, there are definitely other X games that I like much more than X2. So as I was saying, Tsuge's, you can only get to his the X Hunter fight here by using the ride armor. The ride armor is a big part of Crystal Snail stage. You can you can very easily you can very easily ride it around for about half of the length of the stage. So it's a big deal here in Crystal Snail stage, that the ride armor and its flying ability as well as its powerful punches. We'll get into more into that. Tsuge's, again, in this stage specifically, he is weak to Silk Shot, so if you've got it, use it. The crystal version of Silk Shot, Tsuge's, is very, very susceptible to this. We beat him. Hooray. Starting to feel the time here. And all the rambling I've done. There are instant kill spikes after the Crystal Snail X Hunter fight, so be careful of that. There are instant kill spikes right there. Though the checkpoint, actually no, I don't think there's a checkpoint because this is still too early in the stage. Anyway, ride armor. We've been carrying this around since the beginning of the level. We used it to get our heart tank easier. We brought it further along than we brought it further along by manipulating the sliding crystal to sort of destroy the obstacle that was preventing the ride armor from moving with us, and we were able to get it up here to the mini boss's stage. You have to destroy you have to destroy only a certain amount of crystals, and if you do, you're rewarded with a super easy mini boss, because this mini boss is super susceptible to the ride armor's charged up punch, the drill dash thing that this ride armor can do. If you destroy all of the crystals, then obviously you can't bring the ride armor into the boss fight, but you do get an extra life for your troubles, and you have to fight the mini boss normally. So the mini boss only really does one thing, which is summon this little floating turret thing that fires a sort of Gemini laser from Mega Man 3 around. A lot of little lasers that bounce around for a couple of bounces before it disappears. It's annoying. It's not that bad. It's a very, very simple boss. Eventually, once it's at low enough health, it's going to unleash a second turret to fire more blasts. This mini boss is weak to Silk Shot as well as Wheel Gator, so use those and finish it off quick. Not much to it. After the fight with the mini boss, there'll be another sliding crystal here, the one that we manipulated in order to bring the right armor as far along as we did. There is an extra health pellet there if you have Flame Stag's weapon. I would recommend you use Flame Stag's weapon with the arm parts because it's much more difficult to get that extra health without it. You know, it's possible, it's more difficult to get it. Crystal Snail is the only stage in the game to feature a Dr. Light capsule that is not locked behind a special weapon. A special weapon requirement. You know, the one that we got in Overdrive Ostrich and Morph Mod stage required us to use Wheel Gator. Wheel Gator's weapon, and the one that we got in Wheel Gator's stage required us to either use the foot parts or Wire Sponge's weapon. The one in Crystal Snail's stage requires no such upgrades, but part of the reason for that is because the head parts, the helmet that we get here for X's second armor, is probably the most useless of the 4 armor parts. This game was batting, you know, was doing well with the armor parts. All you know, mid-air dash, great. Double Charge Buster, phenomenal. Giga Crush, good addition. It's a great thing to have. The head parts, the only thing the head parts do is alert you to secret passages. And I've already showed you the most important secret passages in Overdrive Ostrich's stage and in Bubble Crab stage that lead you to those little rooms where you can use a charged up Silk Shot to collect infinite health to quickly fill up your sub-tanks. This room here with the the bat bat bots here, the bat mechaniloids here. This is another silk shot room. It's not a secret room. This is the I believe like the only required one of these rooms that you have to pass through. And instead of giving you health, it gives you weapon energy. So this room introduces you to the concept that these rooms exist in Mega Man X2, but it doesn't give you a useful reward. First of all, it's way too deep into a Crystal Snail stage to actually be useful as a sub-tank farm spot. And second of all, it gives you weapon energy and not health for your sub-tanks. So it's just there to introduce you to the concept that those kinds of rooms exist, and Silkshot has that effect in certain locations, but, you know, in order to find the secret rooms, you can use the helmet, but you already saw in this video where the secret rooms are, so why would you bother to use the helmet? The helmet looks nice, but provides no real function outside of looking, you know, pretty cool. Let's talk about Crystal Snail, and then we will wrap up. Crystal Snail has three things that it does. It fires Crystal Hunter, which is that projectile attack. It can freeze X. If he freezes X, he will usually always follow up with by retreating into his shell and flying around trying to charge into X. He is quite slow. He doesn't do that much damage when you have Dr. Light's armor part. Overall, Crystal Snail is not that bad of a boss. It's a very long boss, though. This is another boss fight that, similar to Wheelgator, takes a while to finish off. Unlike Wheelgator, though, where that boss fight becomes punishing and long if you use his weakness. You can use Crystal Snail's weakness to speed things up a little bit, but we'll be seeing that in the next video, in his rematch, as well as how the weaknesses work for all the Mavericks in every single one of the rematches. So if you get caught by the Crystal Hunter, you are going to have to mash like crazy to escape, because otherwise you will be stuck in there long enough for Crystal Snail to discharge into you. You know, the only reason I'm escaping in time is because I am mashing and moving and pressing the D-pad D-pad directions like crazy in order to get out of that fast enough. If you don't, then you will be stuck long enough for Crystal Snail to charge into you and do some contact damage. He can charge up to 2 times. He usually only charges 2 times when he's at low health, and charges once when he's at almost full health. He also has this attack where he can slow down time. If he slows down time, it's not really that big of a deal. It just means that you have less of a window opportunity to hit Crystal Snail. He moves at regular speed, you move at lesser speed. You know, there's obvious advantages to him using that ability, but he uses it so late in the fight that it's not really that dangerous. Alright. Crystal Snail is dead. All the Mavericks are down. We have defeated all the X-Hunters as well. Next time, we will go to the final fortress, and we will wrap up Mega Man X2. Thank you very much. I will see you all next time. Bye-bye.